Just taking a slight detour, though, for a moment, and U.S. President Donald Trump has canceled the planned summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-Un, saying it's a tremendous setback for North Korea and the world, blaming the anger and hostility in a recent statement made by the North Korean leader. Joining us for more is Professor of Political Science at Cypress College and regular CNN commentator Peter Mathews, and he's joining us live via Skype from Long Beach in California. Welcome to the program. Nice to have you here today.
Thank you. Thank you, Nadine.
I read that statement, the letter put out by the U.S. President Donald Trump. I mean, that was an extraordinary piece of writing, to say the least. And now we have North Korea responding, saying that they would still meet at any time, I believe is the quote. I mean, where are we at in this unfolding drama, you can now call it?
We're unpredictable land, to put it very briefly, but here's the thing. You know, what North Korea wants is to be sure that they're going to be secure from any kind of regime change, as occurred to the Iraq, for example. And that has to be understood by President Trump's administration. And that's why it was very disconcerting when John Bolton, the National Security Advisor, came out and said that we would use possibly a Libya model, he called the Libya model, to deal with North Korea. Now, we know what happened with Libya, and Vice President Pence repeated it right away just recently, and that really upset North Korea because Libya, Gaddafi was convinced to get rid of his nuclear weapons program in order to dismantle it, in order to receive aid from the United States and the West and to be a normal country, so to speak, among other nations. And when he did that, a few years later, he was overthrown completely with the backing of NATO. The overthrow occurred with the involvement of NATO and the United States as well. So North Korea doesn't want that to happen to them, and they have been asking for a peace treaty all these years, to sign a peace treaty ending the Korean War, which has never been ended. So you think that President Trump could have reciprocated when North Korea, for example, started to destroy its nuclear test site. It started to destroy and dismantle it. When that happened just a few days ago, the U.S. should have then responded and said, let's hold back on the war games that we are having with South Korea. That's also a point of contention there. And that has to be done. Negotiation occurs when one side gives a little, the other one responds in a positive way instead of going in a flagrant way in the opposite direction. I'm afraid that's what happened this time.
Absolutely. So, that's the basis of all negotiations. So this original Bolton remark referencing the Libya solution, was that strategic? Was that to derail? Was that to give the U.S. president an out when it comes to this Korean summit?
It certainly looks like it was a provocative statement to derail the whole process. That's how it seems from the outside looking in. But we can't really read the minds and hearts of someone like Bolton. We know John Bolton was the one who was behind getting out of the Iran nuclear deal, which most of the world was for, staying in there, including our allies. He is someone who does not want to negotiate with the other side, Bolton. He's very belligerent. He's been a very warmongering type of United Nations representative a few years ago, and now they brought him in as National Security Advisor. He's the one who kind of jettisoned this whole peace process, which was looking pretty promising. I mean, it was something that was very daring for President Trump to agree to meet with Kim Jong-Un, and we were praising him for that. And he just has to understand the nuances. I don't think President Trump understands it fully. When Bill Clinton was in office, he was able to keep North Korea from building any nuclear weapons for 8 years with negotiations and with reciprocal support. The details
Peter,
of which I could go into if you need me to. Yeah.
There were people talking about, the U.S. president winning the Nobel Peace Prize if he could pull off this summit that would lead to the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Where do we stand now? Because in that letter that Donald Trump penned today to the North Korean leader, some analysts are saying that, look, the language in that is putting Kim Jong-un on an equal footing almost with him in a leadership capacity, that he's giving him more legitimacy that perhaps he needed to give away, and that is therefore, leaving the U.S. in a worse position when it comes to future negotiations. Is that a summary that sort of rings true to you?
It's not quite the picture that I see, the way I see it. I see it that, what is the ultimate goal here? It's to make sure there won't be any kind of unwarranted, all of a sudden, nuclear exchange that could occur, which we were so close to something like that happening just a few months ago, when each side was talking about fire and fury and rocket man, all these terrible verbals that we're using, with President Trump responding as well with those kinds of harsh language. We need to make sure that we don't start a war through miscalculation. If that's going to be the case, we've got to make sure North Korea feels secure that it will be able to maintain its regime, at least for a foreseeable future, and that the U.S. will be willing to accept that and will guarantee, through action, not words, but through action by signing a peace treaty, or maybe by saying we'll hold off on the war games with South Korea for the next 6 months, not do it the next time. That's nothing that was provocative, because North Korea has always been complaining about those war maneuvers as being very dangerous for itself, it's a threat to itself. So President Trump has to know how to reciprocate. And I think if the ultimate goal is to take the world away from the brink of nuclear war, which we were really, let me remind you, we were there about 6 months ago, even less than that. And we've come so far away from that now in rhetoric, and yet President Trump allowed John Bolton to blow it, basically. And then Vice President Pence echoes that, which was very, in my view, very not very thoughtful, and it's caused a lot of repercussions right now. So we hope we can actually get ourselves from a move back.
Well, yeah, I mean, what happens now, the summit is off, but that doesn't mean that we are not, capable of moving toward peace on the Korean Peninsula, does it?
No, it doesn't mean that. It means that we could still move toward peace. We could still have another summit a little later. President Trump left that open, that they could meet later, and Kim Jong-Un and the North Korean government sent a letter saying that we could meet later. They could meet later also with us. So it hasn't been jettisoned completely. There's still a chance to salvage it if the United States would be more measured in its approach and to respond to any kind of positive action of North Korea. It has to be reciprocated. Otherwise, if it's a one-sided thing, and North Korea, by the way, is not going to give up its nuclear weapons overnight. That's off the table, and yet Trump was demanding that. And yet, recently, Trump was actually showing that he might actually be more flexible on that and allow North Korea in a phased-in way to phase out certain nuclear weapons initially and take more time to do others, as we would reward them from our side. Trump actually came to that statement, so I wish he had gone through with it rather than allowing Bolton and Vice President Pence to pull us back to the brink once again. Very dangerous for the whole world, and the United States and North Korea and South Korea. Don't forget South Korea.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for your insights and your comments. Peter Mathews, appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.